Picture this. It's the year 1911. Ford's Model T is quickly climbing the ranks to become the best-selling car around. But you're not concerned. You're riding high. The public loves you, hailing you as the finest race car driver in the country. Your fame has opened the door to launching a car company, one that even carries your name. You're proud, rightfully so, because in just a few short years, your company will rise to challenge Ford and outperform them in both races and sales, bringing in profits beyond imagination. But there's one major problem. You're no longer part of the company. Instead, during the crushing days of the Great Depression, you're left fighting to stay afloat while the company you helped create earns millions. And now you find yourself back at that company, only this time, not as an owner, but as a line worker just trying to survive. This is the little-known story of Chevrolet and of the man behind its name, Louis Chevrolet.
Louis Chevrolet was born on Christmas Day, 1878, in La Chaux-de-Fonds, a small Swiss town known for watchmaking. He was the second of 7 children in the Chevrolet family. Much of his childhood was spent in the rugged terrain of the Jura Mountains, where his father, Joseph Chevrolet, worked meticulously in the watchmaking trade to support the household. But when Louis was just 9, the family faced a severe financial crisis. They were forced to relocate to Beaune, a city in France, hoping to turn things around. Joseph opened a new watch repair shop, but it barely brought in enough income to support a family of 9. Days often passed with little to eat, and survival became a daily challenge. To help out, Louis left school at the age of 11 and took up work at Robin Bicycle Workshop. There, he started repairing bicycles and wagons. He quickly developed a knack for mechanics, and by the time he was 16, had built his own bicycle, which he named the Frontenac. With it, he entered local races and consistently finished at the top, his victories helping feed his family and earning him a reputation. Then in the spring of 1897, a moment that would change his life occurred. Louis was asked to fix a peculiar steam-powered tricycle owned by a guest at the Hôtel de la Poste. He'd never seen anything like it. It was one of the earliest automobiles. The experience left him awestruck. That guest turned out to be none other than William Kissam Vanderbilt, a member of the wealthy Vanderbilt family. Impressed by Louis's skill, Vanderbilt encouraged him to seek a future in America. From that day on, Louis Chevrolet didn't just dream of speed. He dreamed of crossing the Atlantic, chasing opportunity and a destiny tied to the automobile. And that dream would set the wheels of history in motion. By 1899, Louis Chevrolet had crafted another bicycle of his own design, which he named the Gladiator. It was such a remarkable creation that it caught the attention of a supervisor at the Derrick car plant in Paris. Louis was brought on board and began working at the factory, where he was introduced to the workings of internal combustion and 4-stroke engines. Some accounts suggest that he may have also gained experience at other renowned firms, like de Dion-Bouton, a leading automobile manufacturer in France at the time. Whether or not those rumors were true, Louis was clearly gathering the knowledge he needed to pursue a bigger goal, making it to America. With the wages he had earned in Paris, he made his move across the Atlantic. At the age of 21, Louis first landed in Montreal, Canada, before making his way down to New York City in 1901. In New York, he found work at an engineering shop, thanks to a fellow Swiss immigrant named William Walter. But it was only a short-term role. Not long after, Louis took a job with the American branch of de Dion-Bouton. Unfortunately, the company closed its U.S. division just a year later, leaving Louis in search of new work. Around this time, he also suffered a personal loss. his father passed away, prompting Louis to invite his remaining family members to join him in the States. He spent the next few years scraping together a living by working small mechanical jobs and even driving cars to make ends meet. But everything changed in 1905 when Louis landed a spot on Fiat's American racing team, marking the start of the next exciting chapter in his life. While working at Fiat, Louis Chevrolet's love for engines deepened. His passion for speed turned into something more serious, an all-consuming drive to master racing and mechanics alike. Soon, he wasn't just known as a skilled worker. He was building a reputation as a bold, fearless driver willing to take on anyone and anything. His racing debut came in a timed event at Morris Park. He drove a car considered too weak to win, but to everyone's shock, Louis shattered the 1-mile record. It was the beginning of his racing legend. A few months later, he lined up against the best drivers in the country in a head-to-head competition. He didn't just hold his own, he won. His victory earned widespread attention, even landing him on the front page of the New York Times. Despite his quirky mustache, Louis had the strength of a brawler. Back then, race cars were unforgiving machines with rigid suspensions and crude controls. Driving them was more like wrestling a wild animal than steering a car. Louis had the grit and muscle to tame these machines. But he wasn't just strong, he was smart. As a talented mechanic, he constantly studied the vehicles, tweaking and fine-tuning them to perform better. His rare combination of raw power and technical expertise turned him into a standout figure in early American motorsports. That reputation brought him to the attention of John Walter Christie, an inventor known for bold ideas. Christie invited Louis to join his company, prompting a move to Philadelphia. There, Louis contributed to the development of a front-wheel drive race car, a revolutionary idea, although still too new to dominate. Even after his stint at Christie's, Louis kept racing. He competed in major events like the Vanderbilt Cup and the Indianapolis 500. His consistent wins and daring performances captured the public's imagination and made his name a symbol of racing greatness. Louis Chevrolet was no longer just a mechanic or a racer. He was a star on the rise, soon to shape an entire industry. After his removal from General Motors, William Durant was determined to regain his standing in the auto industry. Spotting Louis Chevrolet's rising fame, he saw an opportunity. The name Chevrolet had recognition, flair, and marketing gold written all over it. Durant approached Louis with a proposal, a new car company bearing Louis's name. Louis, joined by his brother Arthur, agreed. Thus, in 1911, Chevrolet Motors came to life. Louis, with his trusted associate Etienne Planche, set to work on designing the company's first car. After 6 months of development, they rolled out the Chevrolet Classic 6, a car powered by a 4.8-liter six-cylinder engine that could reach speeds up to 65 miles per hour. The car debuted in 1913, priced at $2,250, which would be tens of thousands in today's money. But sales were limited. Just a few hundred units were sold. More troubling was the growing friction between Louis and Durant. Louis wanted high-performance vehicles, while Durant had his sights set on affordable models that could compete with Ford's Model T. While Louis was away traveling, Durant shifted the company's direction without him. When Louis returned, upset by the changes and a personal insult from Durant, he left the company. In 1915, he sold all his shares, just before Chevrolet skyrocketed. Louis, undeterred, poured his energy into racing once again, launching Frontenac Motors with his brother Gaston and capturing victory at the 1920 Indianapolis 500. But fate had a turn waiting. Just 2 years after their biggest racing triumph, tragedy struck the Chevrolet family. In 1922, Gaston Chevrolet, Louis' youngest brother and closest ally, lost his life in a horrific crash during a race in Beverly Hills. The news shattered Louis. The pain of losing not just a sibling, but a teammate and partner was too much to bear. Louis was never the same again. Devastated, he vowed never to set foot on a racetrack again. The roar of the engines that once thrilled him now echoed with sorrow. Still, he tried to push forward. He poured what remained of his energy into a new vision, one focused on innovation and growth. He and his older brother Arthur launched a new company aimed at building motors, not just for cars, but for planes as well. For a brief moment, it seemed like a comeback was on the horizon. Their enterprise even expanded overseas, reaching places like Canada, England, and Australia. But the world had other plans. The Great Depression swept across the globe like a storm, wiping out businesses big and small. Louis' latest company didn't stand a chance. The dream that had taken him from a tiny Swiss town to the top of the racing world was now fading. And for the first time, it seemed like he couldn't outrun the past. Yet the story of Louis Chevrolet was far from over. He had more to endure. And the most ironic chapter of his life was just about to begin. Louis' latest company didn't stand a chance. The dream that had taken him from a tiny Swiss town to the top of the racing world was now fading. And for the first time, it seemed like he couldn't outrun the past. Yet the story of Louis Chevrolet was far from over. He had more to endure, and the most ironic chapter of his life was just about to begin. He had spent decades chasing speed, glory, and innovation. His name had headlined races, launched cars, and built factories. But now, with every venture behind him either collapsed or taken away, Louis found himself at a painful crossroads. His fame had dimmed, his wealth had vanished, his influence, once so powerful, had all but evaporated. The man who once thrilled crowds on racetracks across the nation was now a shadow, drifting through a world he once helped shape. Opportunities had dried up. His design talents were overlooked in favor of younger minds. His racing achievements were becoming distant memories in a fast-changing automotive world. And so, with no other path left, Louis made a decision that stunned those few who still followed his story. He walked back through the gates of Chevrolet Motors, the company that bore his name, not as a partner, not as a leader, but as a worker seeking employment. There were no press releases, no special announcement, no reunion celebration. To the management, he was simply another man with a mechanical skill set. To the workers on the floor, he was someone they may have once heard of, but barely recognized. Louis Chevrolet, founder and legend, began working as an ordinary mechanic on the company's production line. Each day, he reported in like everyone else, clocked his hours, and stood at the assembly benches, building the very vehicles that carried his name. It was a quiet, unglamorous existence, far removed from the racetracks and design studios of his past. The irony was hard to ignore. While the company soared, its cars becoming symbols of American success, Louis labored silently behind the scenes. The emblem he had inspired was now one of the most recognized in the country, seen on thousands of roads, but none of that reflected back on him. He didn't earn royalties. He wasn't honored in the corporate halls. His story was largely forgotten. Then came the toll of age. Years of physical strain and emotional wear caught up with him. He began to suffer from atherosclerosis, a painful and progressive disease that slowly restricted blood flow. As his condition worsened, doctors were forced to amputate his leg in 1938. The surgery brought an end to the only work he had left. Now, unable to stand, build, or work, Louis retired in silence. There were no pensions waiting, no safety net, just memories, and the distant hum of engines that still carried his name. On June 6, 1941, Louis Chevrolet passed away at the age of 63. He died far from the wealth his legacy generated, unknown to many, and uncelebrated by the company he helped bring to life. Yet, in a final twist of fate, he was laid to rest near the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where years earlier his hands and heart had once ruled the pavement. A quiet resting place for a man whose story still roars, just not always in the way it should.